Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And we're going to talk about motivation. Now, I could wind up starting off talking about the half marathon that I ran yesterday. Absolutely amazing race, by the way. And I will talk about that if someone asks me to, because every Friday I answer your questions. That's right. You can send me questions, ama.fppradio.com. What? That's not an email address, you say. Exactly, it's not. But what it is contact form on the website where you can send questions anonymously if you want to. That's right. You don't have to use your real name. You don't have to use your real email address. You don't even have to use a real name or a real email address. Just put in a name and an email address and a question, and then send that over. And I only know who you are if you tell me who you are. And I will only read your name if I know you personally. So, if your name on there is like, Jack Johnson, I'm not necessarily going to say Jack Johnson. But if it's somebody that I know and they provide their real name and their real email address, then I will say, hey, this person that I know and like, because if I don't like you, then I'm not going to mention your name, probably. But hey, that's neither here nor there. So just be somebody that I like, and then I'll read your name. Unless it's a really particularly funny name, in which case I might read it just because I find it funny. So, again, I answer those questions every Friday, ama.fppradio.com. And I've already sort of diverted off the path here, which is something that I did not do while running the half marathon yesterday, and that's because I was motivated to finish. So if you can't tell, we're going to talk about motivation. Article from lifehack.org, and if we have time, get into an article from, of all places, FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education. Not that, that's not a source that I go to for, or it is a source that I go to regularly for Liberty News, not necessarily for news, or I guess news isn't the right term, but, opinions and perspectives on self-help sorts of things, which is why I said of all places, because it's something that you don't necessarily expect, or I did not expect to see this on FEE when I came across it, but very good article that might possibly be able to get into. So, let's talk about motivation. Whenever a new year starts, and it's really kind of arbitrary, there's nothing special about January 1st, I personally like celebrating the new year somewhere around the equinox, the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. I believe the official term is the vernal equinox, or maybe I'm getting those confused. Spring and autumn, one of them is the vernal equinox, but whatever, the one that happens in March. I like, thinking of that as kind of the new year because things start to regrow about that time. Although I do celebrate also the Chinese New Year, just because I was born on Chinese New Year, so it's kind of like a second birthday sort of thing for me. But nonetheless, I digress. I continue. Whenever a new year starts, whether it's January 1st or whatever day you pick. We often will make New Year's resolutions, but how long can you keep at it? A week? A month? 6 months? An entire year? Well, you know it by heart. You want to be healthy, but you can't resist the junk food. You want to get in shape, but maybe you're too lazy to sweat. You want to save money, but you constantly find things that you need. You want to get a promotion, but you don't really want to go to work. You definitely don't want to work overtime. Are you just too weak to stay motivated? Maybe, maybe not. You're just fulfilling the obligations or expectations imposed on you by others. When we talk about self-motivation, we talk about self. It's not about someone else. It's all about you. If you're trying to fulfill the obligations or expectations imposed by others, you will never be able to stick to it. If your parents want you to earn more money and you try to follow, it's not likely that you'll have the motivation to do it till the end, as you barely know why you should. And there was a quote that I don't remember completely, but I'm going to try to remember this and do a paraphrase about the reason people don't change is they don't want the change enough. They might want the change, or I think it was technically they're not willing to make the sacrifice needed to make the change. They might want the change, but they're not necessarily willing to put in the work for the change. And that goes in with motivation of why are you wanting to do fill in the blank. And if you're not motivated on your own, chances are external forces won't be able to motivate you either. Continuing with the article here, you're not sure what you want to do. So these are some of the reasons why you may not be motivated. The first was you're trying to fulfill other people's expectations. Second on the list is you're just not really sure what you want to do. A vague and unspecific New Year's resolution will always die in silence. Not having a clear goal is often the reason why we lack motivation. If you say you want to earn more money, you can't just say it. Things don't just happen like magic. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
You can support FPP Radio by shopping online. Whether you're looking for precious metals, bitcoins, or books, you'll find that and more at shop.fppradio.com. Every purchase you make from one of my affiliates, like Namecheap, Spendabit, and Amazon at shop.fppradio.com helps fund FPP Radio. Or you can shop directly from FPP with Bitcoin in the Bitcoin store. That's shop.fppradio.com. The Doublespeak Dictionary by Leslie Starr O'Hara satirizes the marked difference between the ideal of we the people and the reality of we the elite, while offering an insightful glimpse into the clockworks of the totalitarian mind. Ever irreverent but never irrelevant, the Doublespeak Dictionary serves as a subversive and humorous but timely reminder that the emperor has no clothes. The Doublespeak Dictionary is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry. Online at fppradio.com.
You want to earn more money. Well, how much more? $5 more? $500 more? $5 over what time period? $500 over what time period? You want to be a millionaire? Well, how many millions do you want? Does that mean $1 million in the bank? Does that mean $1 million worth of stuff? Well, if you're a millionaire, how much debt are you going to have? Because, accept the facts that a lot of people, I dare say the vast majority, do have debt. So somebody might have $1 million worth of assets, $240,000 worth of debt. Oh, and then, there's a mortgage on the house, add that on, because most people don't really consider a mortgage to be part of their debt load, and then wind up, you might be able to, if you sold off all of your assets, you might be able to break even. But I digress and continue. Vague goals will die. Without clear direction, you feel like running on an endless track. You'll easily give up in the middle, as you never see the sign which guides you to the finish line. Now, going to divert to, there's a very good sentence here that allows me to divert and actually talk a little bit about the marathon. Or actually, there was a marathon and a half marathon. I ran the half marathon that started in Surrey, New Hampshire, and finished in Keene. So very close by. I rode my bike down to the college, where the bus took me to the starting area, and wound up running to the end. Now, in my running, I've gotten my endurance up on my just regular training runs. Somewhere around the 8.5 mile area is what I normally do for a training run, a couple times a week. And so started running, and as often happens on race day, when you're running with other people, your pace will pick up a little bit more. All right, I'm good here, running. And water stations, I normally don't stop for water when I'm doing a training run, so didn't stop at the first station. I think I skipped like the first 3 before getting water, but that's neither here nor there. But I'm running, and somewhere around the 6-7 mile mark, I was like, all right, I'm good. Gonna see if I can go to 9 miles, maybe 10. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go to 10 miles, and I know I can run 10 miles. I've run 8.5 all the time. It's just another 1.5 miles. That's not that far. And then when I hit 10 miles, it's a 5K. I can run a 5K. I run 5Ks all the time. And so I'm playing this mental game with myself, and there were arrows pointing. If you're running the full marathon, you turn this way. If you're going on the half marathon, you turn this way. Because even though the paths merged together, they also, diverted apart several times, and then we all ended in the same spot. It would be really weird to have 2 races running simultaneously where they merge together, but you have different finish lines. So merged together for the last couple of miles, or 1.5 miles maybe, and we all finished in the same spot. And I had a clear goal in mind of just keep running. And I realize you might be thinking, but Darryl, like you've talked about doing half marathons before. Yes, I have. But the other 2 that I did, I took walk breaks. So I was continuing to move forward. I just wasn't doing so in a running motion. Like fast walk is not a run. A run, there's specific definition to where at certain points both feet are off the ground, blah, 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 blah. So I wound up running the entire half marathon yesterday, wound up beating not only my prediction and my goal, but also broke the 1 hour, 57 minute mark and beat my personal record by over 21 and a half minutes. So I am absolutely ecstatic and happy about what I did because I had a clear goal. I met the goal. I exceeded the goal tremendously. And I knew exactly where the finish line was. If I were just out running with a bunch of people and had no clue where the finish line was, I would have made the goal because I wouldn't have known what the goal was. Continuing on, other reasons that you might not be motivated, you're not really ready for a change. Leave it for tomorrow. That's the most typical line from a person who lacks motivation. Perhaps sometimes we're just too optimistic, thinking that things aren't that bad and everything can wait until tomorrow. You might want to lose weight, and maybe you have wanted to do that for years. I know I was there for a long time, and then just something sort of sparked, and I'm actually in the process of writing a book about it, to where I was listening to an episode of Penn Sunday School. He was talking about how he lost a lot of weight, and that was just sort of the spark in my mind of, okay, Darryl, you can do this, and we're going to start on this date. So maybe, you want to lose weight, but you've not gotten that motivation. And that is really because you're not really ready for the change. You want the change, you're just not willing to actually put in the work for the change. Which means that, some people will say, you don't really want it that bad. And I see that kind of as a negative motivator. I'm definitely not trying to be a negative motivator. And that's actually what the article from Fee talks about, is why shaming people is the worst way to persuade them. And when you're trying to persuade someone, you're trying to motivate them to do something that you would like them to do. Continuing on with the article from Lifehack, and of course the link will be in the show notes, where you can read this at your leisure. You just can't let it be. Some people lack the motivation to learn to motivate themselves, but please don't give up. Self-motivation is an important skill that all of us need to master. At work, being able to motivate yourself and others makes things work better. When you encounter a massive, overwhelming task, you should be able to motivate yourself instead of procrastinating, which makes it harder to overcome inertia. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Hey, this is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends radio show. I've been working with computer programmer Derek Slopey to create Fiend Phone. I'm using Fiend Phone right now to talk with and record one of my co-hosts in real time. Take it, Davi.
Hey, this is Davi Barker, and I'm 1,000 miles away from Michael, but we sound like we're in the same room.
We sure do, Davi. So, Davi, please tell the nice people more about Fiend Phone.
Fiend Phone is free, open-source software that opens up a global world of possibilities for collaborative, high-quality remote voice media production, and I'm digging it.
People can try the Windows beta version of Fiend Phone right now at fiendphone.com. But we're also raising money to vastly improve Fiend Phone and vastly improve independent talk media worldwide.
So go to fiendphone.com to help out. Who will build the audio roads? We will, with your help.
That's fiendphone.com. FEENPHONE.com. Foxtrot, Echo, November, phone.com.
Fiend Phone. I never knew remote audio could be this good.
This is Paige Peterson from MaidSafe, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. We'll get back to the article here momentarily about motivation. But first, I've got a question for you. Are you an advocate for free market money? Do you use Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world? Then you need Spend-A-Bit in your arsenal. Spend-A-Bit is the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. They've aggregated millions of products, well over 3 million products, from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend a bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin-accepting merchant like I am, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.fppradio.com. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. So getting back into the article again from Lifehack, you need to find out what motivates you. If you're, trying to get some motivation and you just can't for one of the above mentioned reasons, and I guess previously mentioned, not above mentioned, so trying to fulfill other people's expectations, you just aren't really sure what you want to do, or you're not really ready for a change. You want to change, but you just can't really, actually do anything about it. Or maybe you just keep procrastinating. find out what motivates you. Continuing on, they say there are two types of motivation. There's intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation is to perform an action or task based on the expected or perceived satisfaction of performing the action or the task. Intrinsic motivators include having fun, being interested, and personal challenge. Extrinsic is to perform an action or task in order to attain some sort of reward, including monetary power and good grades or marks, or maybe an attaboy from your boss. If you find your motive is extrinsic, try to immerse it into your goal. Let's say your goal is to get in shape. Try to think of what kinds of rewards you can get during the journey or after you achieve the goal. For example, you might be able to turn it into a career and make some money. Scott Geller, who is an alumni distinguished professor in the Department of Psychology at Virginia Tech, has 4 C's. No, those aren't, grades that he got in college. Ha ha ha, see what I did there. Competence, consequences, choice, and community. His 4 C's, again, competence, consequence, choice, and community. Competence. Ask yourself these 2 questions. Do you believe you can do it? And will it work? If the answer to both questions is yes, then you will feel competent and are more likely to be self-motivated. For consequences, ask yourself the following question. Is it worth it? Going to skip down under choice. He writes, when you have a sense of autonomy, you're more inspired to do the task at hand. Think of a time when you were a kid. Every day you would wake up in the morning, rush to school. How do you think about going to school? I have to get to class, or I get to go to class. For the former, it's a requirement. For the latter, an opportunity. Although most of us have successfully graduated from school, probably not many not many of us find motivation in school because we think we have no option. And lastly is community. Social support is critical. I'll say it again because it's important. Social support is critical. People who perceive a sense of connection with others feel more motivated and happier. The power of man is limited and everyone has weakness. When things get tough, it's always good to have someone to remind us and to encourage us. If you get tired and lack motivation, you need someone to remind you why you started it in the first place. And then they say, learn to motivate yourself. And there's kind of an ad for a book there. Not that I'm going to just dismiss it out of hand, but I'll leave it to where, again, the link will be in the show notes. You can read it at your leisure. Now, jumping over to the article from FEE, and they're taking a different look at motivation, specifically why shame is the worst way to motivate someone, or in this case, they say persuade, but again, persuasion is just a form of motivation. Alana Connor, a cultural scientist at Stanford, says telling people they're racist, sexist, and xenophobic is going to get you exactly nowhere. Social psychology tells us persuasion happens one of 2 ways, centrally and peripherally. The central route to persuasion uses reasoned arguments, getting someone to think deeply about an issue. If they're paying attention and they have something at stake, you might be able to persuade them. The peripheral route is less ideal. It skips reason and relies on superficial cues to do its job. For example, it might make appeals to popularity or authority. And shaming someone falls into neither of these categories. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.info, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.info today to find out more. Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry, online at fppradio.com.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. As always, the links will be in the show notes. You can read these articles at your leisure. Talking about motivation and tangentially persuasion, because again, persuasion is just trying to motivate someone in a different kind of way. So you're not trying to motivate a racist to go to the gym and pick up a heavy thing. You're trying to motivate them to not be a racist anymore, and yelling, "You racist!" isn't going to motivate them to do anything other than dig in their heels, metaphorically speaking, of course. Continuing on, shaming someone is neither central nor peripheral forms of persuasion. It's not providing them with a reasoned argument, and it doesn't appeal to them on an emotional level. In fact, shaming someone is more likely to get them to shut you out and form a negative impression of both you and your views, leaving you worse off than you were before. At best, shaming someone leaves bad ideas in the shadows where they can't be challenged and where proponents of those bad ideas can't be persuaded. Good ideas become tenuous. If you hold an idea only out of shame, then you likely never went through the process of understanding why it's a good idea, leaving you less able to defend it. Fortunately, there are persuasive ways to reduce prejudiced attitudes. Simply interacting with others, getting people to reflect on why they hold certain views, and asking them to take on new perspectives all appear to be the effective way of undoing prejudice. But when shame is the method du jour, none of that can happen. This should not be surprising. Calling someone a bigot is little more than an insult. It may feel gratifying, and it may even be true, but if we want outcomes, we should bear in mind that persuasion just doesn't happen that way. Shaming can be successful at shutting people up, but if you're trying to change someone's mind, well, that's an entirely different task. Again, the links will be in the show notes. You can read it at your leisure. And don't forget, every Friday I answer your questions. And again, you can send those over anonymously. You don't have to use your real name. You don't even have to use a real name. You can just put in a bunch of characters for the name. Doesn't even have to be a word. Now, if you want me to answer the question needs to actually be words. And it has to be something other than, want to improve your SEO rating? Yeah, no, that's spam. But legitimate questions, they get answered. ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans today's program, visit fans.fppradio.com.